We want to share some things with you from research called Dyffryn Dyfodol, and we're looking at how community and creative people can work together in the Conwy Valley to look at alternative ways of working. So if you're not here to hear about those things, you're in the wrong place, but hopefully you're all in the right place. Looking forward to sharing with you. So I'm just going to tell you about what's going to happen today. So there'll be some screen sharing. So first of all, we're going to give you a background to the project. Then Justin will talk about the developing partnerships. Then Sioned will talk about principles of the ways of working before we move on to Katie, who'll share some examples of activities. And then we'll have a response from Claire before we move on to questions and answers. So quite a lot of sheer scrolling today, so hopefully I won't be sharing the wrong window. So some background then from myself. So we're investigating how to share what we're doing with the project. So today is part of that. We don't know exactly what the best way to share is. So this Zoom session is part of that work. So you're all special being part of the process of investigation. And thank you for that. We haven't shared in this way before. We've shared internally, but not publicly before. So really keen to have feedback from you at the end. So anything you've got to say would be really useful. And then we want to share in an honest and open way, because we haven't got all the answers. We're not telling people what to do and how to do it. We just want to share what we're doing. So this is not a finished project. It's not like an end of project report telling you what we found out. It's still ongoing until March next year. And we haven't got too much time today, unfortunately, to go into real detail, but we'd like to keep in touch with you. If you're interested in specific things, we can still discuss with you and have a deeper conversation and see how we can share those details in future. So Dyffryn Dyfodol is a partnership project between Natural Resources Wales, Cartrefi Conwy and Fusar. We've been working together about 2.5 years now, focusing on the rural area around the Conwy River catchment area. And we've tried to do things slightly differently, different to the usual way that we would be doing things. We keep away from words like innovative and new, because what do they mean most of the time? So it means it's about us and it's personal to us. So we make a point of trying to do things differently. So where did the idea come from? About 6 years ago, I was starting to think of a possible project that would go further than an arts project, but that would bring together different elements of our lives. I could see that there was a need for that. I've worked a lot on standalone arts projects where we do something, people come enjoy it and so on. But I wanted to go deeper and look at the complexity of things. So I want to do an activity with you now. If you're willing, if you could, and if you haven't got it on at the moment, if you could put your screen on and look for Katie Trent, who's waving now in the red jumper. If you could all point to Katie, show where she is on your screen. So in which direction is she? If you could put your finger up like that, and I'm going to take a quick screenshot so that I have proof that we've done this. So as you can see, Thank you. Not everybody was pointing in the same direction. And that's a very simple way of telling you how people's experiences are quite different. Whatever you're thinking is your world and your experience. It just shows you that my experience is different from yours. So that was just a warm-up. So sharing screen again, and if you could get your pen and paper ready. So I'm showing you to a certain extent how my way of thinking works. In this slide, you can see how people discuss our lives and our world, where everything is different in a nice, neat little list. But that's really not how real life works. So how do things affect each other? How they intertwine, cross? It's not simple. So this is my own version, which looks something like this, which looks a little bit of a mess. Everybody will create different one. And I've done this with people before, and look at some of the amazing things that have been created. So now I'm going to take you through a creative journey where I'm going to name elements of our lives, and I'm going to ask you to draw on your paper how these fit in. So with your piece of paper, by the way, there's no right and wrong version, and it's for nobody else. It's just draw what you think is right. So I'm going to list elements of our lives, and we'll start with community or communities. So if you could draw the shape of communities as it means to you. So we don't want a masterpiece. We're not going to spend too much time on this. And then, can you move on to think about family within the same diagram? What shape would you create? The family. And then we go on to work. Where would you put that? Usually I would spend more time. I realize that. Next, we've got health, whatever that means to you, physical, mental, whatever. Then we go on to environment. How does that fit in as part of your diagram? Whatever it means to you. And then following from that is learning. What does that mean to you? I feel like a therapist here with a nice slow voice. Next, I want you to add language. Language, please. If you haven't got more room, that's okay. And then the next one is culture, whatever that means to you. Then the last one, slightly lighter, chocolate, wine or coffee, whichever or all three of them, things that you really enjoy. How do they fit in? So something lighter to finish off with. Are you willing to hold your paper up to the screen? It'd be really interesting. And I'd love it if you could even take a picture of them and send it through email. So it'd be really brilliant to see those if you're willing. So now I'm going to start something exciting, which is our first poll. So the first question, if you could fill that in, please. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just a few more seconds. Yes. Okay, happy to go on. Now we're going to start talking about partnerships, but before that, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen at the same time and talking. So that was interesting, seeing how different everybody's diagram was. Each one was unique, and that's where the project started from, really. And with the project, we want to address the complexities of this world and people's different experiences. And also, this picture, there are different versions of the valley we work in. The actual land itself changes throughout the year and over time. So Dyffryn Dyfodol looks towards the future. We're not ignoring the past, but that's what we're concentrating on. And how we minimize barriers, how do we do things differently from usual? How do we consider the complexities and accept people's different experiences? We've had funding from the Arts Council of Wales, a fund called Connect and Flourish. So that's great. Thank you very much, ACW. And then the partners, we were challenging ourselves all the time. If we're running the project, do we decide everything? And we thought, well, no. So we started the project itself by thinking about how to create partnerships between three really different organizations. And on that point, I'm going to pass on to Justin, who's going to talk more about partnerships.
Hi, pal. Justin Hanson ydw i. Dwi'n gweithio
I'm Justin, working with Natural Resources Wales.
Dwi ddim yn gallu siarad am pethau fel hwn yn Cymraeg, sorry.
That's saying that he's now going to turn into English.
I'm Justin Hanson. I work for Natural Resources Wales. I'm just apologising. I won't be able to speak in Welsh about this kind of subject, and so I'm going to talk in English. So, Johan, if you could, that's brilliant. So I just thought I'd start off with a quick slide, kind of giving, reminding us where the Conway catchment is and why it's so important to NRW. It's a really big catchment. There's a huge amount of water in there that, and all of that water comes from the uplands, and it all kind of congregates in one place, which is Llanrwst, which brings with it all kind of important aspects of our work. The catchment's really important in terms of, like I said, the river, the catchment. There's special designated sites. So there's European special areas of conservation. There are SSSI sites of special scientific interest. We've got a huge amount of forestry and woodland there. We've got peatlands, which are really important for the climate and climate change and for biodiversity in their own right in the uplands, also in terms of flooding. It's a big area, it encompasses a lot of communities, and those communities interact and do things within the natural environment and within the forests, within the beaches, within the rivers, within the seas, etc. So basically I was saying, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of wildlife, there's a lot of people, and for us also there's a heck of a lot of work, and that's why that's why one of the reasons why we were so interested, and why we're so interested in the Conway catchment. So this slide really, it's a bit of a thing just to explain to us a little bit about NRW. We're really good with data. We love data. We spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time working with that data. We spend a lot of time telling and regulating. We're really good at managing our natural environment, and we're really good, and we have to. We're really good at reacting to things, and that's the way NRW worked for a long, long time. But then COVID happened, and COVID taught us something else, that it was that kind of local environment and our communities that really helped us all get through COVID. It helped us really get through that time of lockdown. And, we all did it. We all went out in a local environment. It's all we could do, wasn't it? And it also taught us that we needed to engage or think about engaging differently with those communities and with those places where we're working. So when an opportunity came up to be part of this new partnership, exciting new project, we were really keen. We jumped at it, although it was a bit like, when you get invited to a really cool person's party and you're a little bit nervous because you're not quite sure, will you fit in, will they listen, etc. But what I'm here to say is the party was great. So through that party, through the partnership, there's 4 things really. I've always said it's 3 before, so this will catch you and Kate and people out. There's 4 things really which we concentrate on. We developed a partnership because we were new partners together, Catterick, Conway, Fusar, NRW. We hadn't worked together really before. So it meant learning about working in new ways. And that's from really simple admin stuff. How do you share data? How do you share our notes? How do we talk to each other? Those sorts of things. So, we spent time doing that, which led into, developing ways of working with each other. How we talk, how we interact, how we plan, how we behave, how we challenge each other. It sounds really basic, but in the past, or it's too easy to overlook. So it's particularly when you're busy, and particularly when you want to jump into doing things. And I think one of the really good things about this project was that we took time to spend time together, developing all of these systems, developing these ways of working with each other. We also developed ways of working with communities, and new things for NRW, more listening, more asking questions, not being the experts. And it's about, about understanding different perspectives, other people's priorities, and how all those objectives, how they can all be combined and work together. I mean, the other big thing for us was the learning and the replicability, if that's even a word, how we could replicate this in other places. How easy could we do this again somewhere else? From my perspective, I'm thinking of other places across Northwest Wales where I'd love to do this kind of thing a little bit differently, maybe the same, whatever, in different places, different things. But this is really replicable. I can't say that word, I don't know why. And as part of that, it's really important that we all, that we remember, that we all realise we don't need all the answers all the time. In fact, it's really quite good to go to a community without those answers, because you're not going there and you're not prejudging. The 5th thing is obviously the really fantastic activities that Katie and Sean are going to talk about a little bit later. So I think we've popped onto the next slide. Yeah, so that's fine where we are, Johan. No, well, it doesn't really matter. So in terms of those ways of working, as you can see, we met up, we visually explored. Yeah, go on to the next slide, Johan. We visually explored what partners wanted. There's lots of detail there. Don't worry about the detail. Just kind of take the image in. There's lots of connectivity. There's lots of detail. There's lots of things that were really important to the different organisations that were involved. Just kind of get an essence of the three partners and their aims. We put those all together. That work was helped with a creative facilitator. She helped us explore what we did now. Basically what we do now, what we did now, what we wanted. And in exploring interest in how we could really work together better. For me, again, it was about, I'd go back here on, for me, it was about, like I said, new ways of thinking, and particularly, listening. We developed a record of what we did, a visual and text version. That became our partnership agreement. And what you're looking at there is one step towards that partnership agreement. And, it's not a way I'd ever worked before. In terms of recording what was important, but it produced something really, really very strong. And I would say, from the whole approach, I've been really lucky to be involved. And NRW's been really lucky to be involved. It's been a huge sort of set of learning for us. And if we really want to achieve sustainable management of our natural resources, we need to do a lot more things. We need to do a lot more, and we need to do a lot more differently than what we've been doing up till now. I think that's another really valuable lesson that I've learned from being involved in this project. We achieve different things. So the slide here now, in terms of applying that learning, we were talking about the catchment, and in North West Wales, in the Conwy catchment, we've developed this way of working with each other and with our partners now, called Llyfo. And we call it Llyfo because it needed a name, but also Llyfo because it's about flows, Llyfo meaning flows. And so really, obviously, you can start off with the fact that, the water flows from the uplands, it flows down the river to the sea, and you've got the water cycle. But as well as that, there's all sorts of other flows. There's flows of people in and out of the catchment. There's flows of stories going in and out of the catchment. There's flows of money going in and out of the catchment. Everything that we do is connected by flows. And so we took that as an opportunity to start working with each other in a different way, looking at those flows. I don't have time to go into detail about it, but very simply, it's getting people together in a space where they getting people together in a space where they can talk, they can interact, they can avoid bumping into each other, avoid standing on each other's toes. So we know what's going on. Again, it sounds really basic, sounds really simple, but it's something that maybe we've lost, and particularly maybe we lost when we lost some of that face-to-face contact during the lockdowns. Other ways we've applied this are really simply, we held some drop-ins recently in Newborough. Newborough's been a really interesting place of work, a very busy place of work for us. And we, being completely honest, we haven't had the best relationship with some parts of the community. What we did was we just made people aware that, we were going to be working from the community centre for a week. So we did our normal work and just made people aware, you're welcome to come and drop in, you're welcome to come and talk to us. And it was really interesting. We've got I've been involved with Newborough for a long time. We've got a very different set of people that were coming in to talk to us. And that was great. It was really nice to see different people. And when they were coming in, they said, so what do you want to talk to us about? And we're saying, well, we haven't come here to, we haven't come here to talk to you. We've come here to actually listen. So we haven't come here with our normal kind of slick posters and stuff like that. We want to, and that surprised some people, but it also worked really, really well. How am I doing for time, Johan? Okay. Sorry. No, that's fine. So the last slide I got here is it's a Japanese artist called Kusama, who I was really, really lucky enough to go and see her work. And this is a work about infinity rooms. It's basically it's a room of mirrors which reflects lights for basically infinity. The reason I'm sharing it is because I think partly what I was talking about before, the element of replication in this work is endless. There's so much we can do with the way that the lessons we've learned from this. There's so much we can go on and do like that. And I think it's also about seeing things differently. And what I was saying as well, that we do see things differently. If we see different perspectives, and that there's endless communities, and we can't treat them all in the same way. And however we move and work around those communities, we see them slightly differently. And it certainly isn't about us and them. It's about them and them, and them and them and them, and them and their dog. It's about everybody that's involved. And the more we can reflect what they want in what we do, the better for all of us. I'll stop you.
Yeah, Justin, that's great. Yeah, lots of interesting insights there, and glad to hear there's an added point 4 ways rather than 3 now. Justin, you always surprise us. That's good. Diolch am rannu. Sioned, dwi'n mynd I basio I ti rwan. Sioned, dwi'n rannu am egwyddorion y project.
So now we go over to Sioned to talk about principles. I am a manager of community impact, social and community impact of creative enterprise, which is part of Cartrefi Conwy. So I'm responsible for the community work that's taking place in the communities of Cartrefi Conwy. So as Iwan said, we're part of the partnership and I represent the group. I became involved with the project about a year ago. There were some changes in the organization. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of the principles that we're working with in the partnership and examples of how they've enabled us to bring the project alive. Because the project had been going on before I joined it, perhaps Iwan can come in as well if I've lost something. So just to give you some background, as a housing association, Cartrefi Conwy has got a housing stock across the Conwy Valley, the Conwy River. So it made sense for us to be partners. And it was exciting for us because it was a chance to look at the way we engage with our tenants and a chance to do different things. So our stock is mainly in Llanrwst itself. And we've got quite a big development going on one of the estates. If you know Llanrwst, you'll know that it's been going on for quite a few years now. So it was natural for us to, or it made sense for us to bring the partnership to this work and try new ways of engaging with tenants and people living in the communities. So what you're seeing on the screen is what used to be part of the Glanrafon estate in Llanrwst, where we demolished 30 maisonettes in order to answer the local need for affordable housing for families. So at the moment, the maisonettes have come down and the houses are up, and the environmental project is still going on. So there were loads of families and tenants living on the site, really, as it was going on. Which brings us to the first principle. I'm sure that everybody who's here, maybe you've tried to buy a house or design a garden. And I'm sure that you all know that things don't always go to plan. And more often than not, they don't. So I think that as partners and an organization, it takes a lot of confidence to just say it's okay not to have all the answers right at the beginning. Although we've got these fantastic plans, things will change. And that's been really important for us. And this is the area for. So although Llanrwst is quite a small town when you compare it with other towns in Wales, there's so many different people living there of all ages and backgrounds, and there's no one size fits all approach. So there are 3 artists, Emily, Lisa and Angharad, who went out and plonked themselves in the middle of the estate at the beginning of the project for 4 days with the intention of talking to people who were just passing. And as Justin said, there's no hidden agenda. We don't need anything from people. It's just getting to know them. So 4 days to see what came out of the chats And what we found was that people wanted to feel closer to nature, wanted to do more things outside, and also the nature that they had on their doorstep. And as Justin again said, in the lockdown, that gave us a chance to go out. And this resulted in Emily going into the river that flows through the estate. And people hadn't had a chance before to really think about the river. So we hadn't planned to go into it at the beginning, but it fitted in and also brought more interest to people. And then we produced a leaflet of everything that they saw in the river that day. And then that list is available to share with people. There were loads of different creatures, and that just made people feel pleased to live there and felt closer to what was around them. Then the next principle of doing things differently, traditionally engaging with young people, would have been done in a school or a youth club or on the estates, and that, but we did that as well. We went to the primary and secondary school in Llanrwst, and we took them out to the school setting, right out to the outdoors, so they could see the things that were around them. So this is an example of just making sure that we try and get to know and get that involvement from people. Maybe in the past they would have been too shy to approach us. And just try and make sure that that reaches there. And then these are things they found in the river. Are they tadpole eggs, fish eggs? Then they saw the fish trying to jump up the river. So we worked with the national park and the primary school saw the eggs grow into fry, and then they were released into the river. So making those links between them and nature. And then we've got examples of things that did work out from this engagement. So these things will be part of the development in the old Glanravon. And we've got benches. There's a design with the flow of the river. And then we had a bug house, which is now a bug skyscraper because it's huge. But there's lots that was built with lots of local families and children. So a few examples there. Well, thank you. There's so much more to say about the principles and about the project. Really grateful to you for that. Now we're going to go over to Katie, who's going to do more activities with us.
Yeah, bore da pawb. Mae'n teimlo fel kind of a relay race.
Well, it feels like a relay race. We're just trying to get everything in.
So dwi'n mynd I siarad am yr cinema bikes rwan.
I'm going to talk about the cycle cinema.
Cyntaf, mae'n y ffilm bach.
But first, there's a short film.
Mae hwn yn rhan o Dyffryn Dyfodol. Dyn ni'n gweithio hefo cymunedau ar draws ardawledig y sir. Be dyn ni'n gobeithio wneud ydy gweithio mewn ffordd gwahanol hefo cymunedau. Gobeithio wrth nocio drysau a siarad efo bobl, bod ni'n gallu bod yn rhan o'r dyfodol maen nhw eisiau weld ar gyfer y cymuned yno.
It's been a night of kind of just bringing people in the community together to share an experience outside to what they might normally have We've had young people helping on the tea stand, we've had people helping with the cycling. It's just kind of been a really nice community effort.
Gwych. OK, achos mae gen i lot i dweud, dwi'n eisiau colli dim byd, felly dwi'n mynd i siarad yn Saesneg, so sorry.
Now she's going to turn into English.
OK, so we worked with 3 different rural communities on housing estates managed by Cartrefi Conwy. And although it was us that chose the locations, i.e. going to where people lived and not expecting them to come to us, we wanted the communities to make as many decisions as much as they could throughout the whole activity. Slide nesa. So in terms of decision making, we really wanted people to have a voice and choose what film they wanted to see, getting them to sort of publicise the night within their communities and also getting them involved in practical action on the nights. And in each location, we approached the community face to face through door knocking, through flyering, which subsequently led to us having pop-up stalls and on the estates, and that was to kind of, connect further with people, repeat our presence on the estates. And just slow down a second, Yuan, sorry. So in each location at the stalls, there are different engagement activities. So for example, making Welsh cakes or making seed bombs. And at every face-to-face interaction, there was an opportunity for people to suggest films or film genres, to suggest locations of the screenings on the estates. And also we had notice boards, post-it notes, and we also provided email address and phone number to give out too, should people want to kind of connect with us at another time. We were just trying to offer a range of communication channels. So throughout Dyffryn Dyfodol, through all our activities, we're always questioning ourselves. We're always just sort of checking in with what's happening, what we're observing. So, for example, within this element of Dyffryn Dyfodol, the cycle cinema, we were asking, God, will people even make suggestions, and how could we encourage this to happen, and how collectively can decisions be made? Who is making the decisions, and who haven't we spoken to? So we didn't set ourselves any numbers of, any target numbers for engagement prior to the events, nor for bums on seats. We didn't know how the nights were going to go, but ultimately, there is a process of evaluation. So all the 3 nights certainly had a buzz about them, but they were all very different, as you might expect. We were in 3 completely different communities. So I don't know where we would slide to you, Anne, but but anyway. So as we sort of mentioned, numbers aren't just the way to measure how it went, but we did, we have, records of who was there. Did they take part in the cycling? Were they helping out for refreshments? Were they helping out in the popcorn stand? Who was involved with clearing up afterwards? Who was involved filling up hot water from their homes to help replenish the hot water dispensers? And so lessons learned, I mean, that's always the big thing, isn't it? I guess it's about really being honest about, what aspects of, all aspects of what happened. So just for example, one of the estates only had 2 families from the estate on the night that came, although we'd had lots of conversations prior, although lots of other people came from outside the estate. We had some short films before the main film, which were on either local creative action and the environment. But on the night, folk weren't really interested in that. It was still too light in terms of the sunlight, and they wanted to socialise. One of the films was too long, and folk ran out of energy to cycle, so drifted off before it finished. But you know what? The film itself wasn't the important thing. What was more important was being out in a communal space, sharing recycling responsibility, being out with family and friends and neighbours, and bringing together people who might not normally connect. Okay, so I get a bit more of a slot now. So now I'm just going to share with you another strand of Dyffryn Dyfodol, which is how our creative call-out worked. And for us, within the creative framework, this was really interesting. It was about commissioning creative people, but doing it differently. So not calling them artists, but calling them creatives. This did result in a DIY man and a psychologist getting in touch with us. There was no application form, no CV, no letter. Initially, it was just a call and a conversation with us. We didn't define what the creative activity nor the art form was, nor the community, where we know what the community was. We had rough geographical area, as you've seen previously within the Conwy catchment. We were flexible with timings and delivery timescales. So the activity was up to the creatives and the communities that they wanted to work with. Next slide. So out of 66 conversations, we had 28 ideas submitted, which did require either a written, audio or video proposal. And within the partnership, we challenged how the selection process worked, acknowledging our biases before we started. And out of those 28, we had 12 paid shortlisted creatives. So they were paid to develop their ideas further and also paid to join us and each other for a face-to-face explore and offering to, support each other actually. Those people that weren't selected in that shortlist, we also offered to support those in their activities and endeavours as well. Next slide. So out of the 12, we had 6 creative people. They received £3,000 for their idea, for their project, plus a further £2,000 for them to meet up with us and each other, so enabling a support network to sort of take hold. We really were trying to move away from the kind of concept of being funders, but being collaborators. So that's been quite important to us. We've had regular face-to-face meetings with them, as well as online sessions as well. And obviously creating a space for open dialogue is really, really rich for learning. Everything can be discussed, everyone can challenge and also support each other, but it takes time to develop these relationships, which we have tried to build into the process. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a tiny little, very quick summary of what the creatives are doing. This is Ti Dechrau. This is an invitation to take a walk to the start of the River Conwy, to have a number of prompts to elicit conversation about the environment and about your connection with it. Nessa? This is a really big event now. This is Gwyl Garog Festival. So diary marker, everybody, 10th of September on Sunday in Dogarog. This is the creative has brought together an amazing number of people to bring the heart back to their community and create a festival. Okay, so this creative, her activity is now linked to Gwyl Garog and the Futures tent, which is happening on the 10th of September. And we've got here, sorry, I'm just rushing the UN. This is Oriel Machno. Originally, this was a shop in Penmachno, which then became a community photography darkroom, and then it was abandoned and it needed significant renovating until this latest incarnation. And this space is a collectively programmed with a series of events and experiments acting as a tool for reflection and exchange and ideas about the future. And here we've got a creative working with volunteers who are very, very passionate about Himalayan balsam removal. And Nessav, and this is our last creative, and he's been exploring conversations with members of the Penmachno community to explore ideas through storytelling in rural communities and the reflection and the relationships with valley and landscape. Just something that's quite been really interesting throughout this whole process of the creatives is that there are so many things to try and share at each level, and I'm sure you appreciate this is just the tip of the iceberg. And to try and summarize lessons learned is really hard, and it's a process. You know, as Ewan mentioned earlier, this Zoom session is now informing us of what to share and how to share it, and trying to sort of tease out what's useful for others. But I would just say, from a commissioning perspective, in terms of the creative call out, one of our key lessons learned is us not defining what creative people should do, giving them the freedom to explore, not having loads of set outputs at the beginning. Why? Because obviously it lets creative people work with the communities and to discuss what's actually wanted. And it results in more meaningful engagement, establishing trust, and to develop between all the peoples involved. So now we're going to just have a little film. We're really keen to show you this film. So the footage for this was only shot just over a week ago, so it is a work in progress. We felt it was really important for you to hear some of the creative voices in their experience with Dyffryn Dyfodol. There is a section that hasn't been translated yet, but those that don't speak Welsh, it'll be okay. Okay, Ewan.
Trying things out.
This is something that feels really, really different and exciting.
Challenging and supportive, and personally confidence building.
Complete openness like never before. Fantastic.
It's a really, really great project. It's really opened my eyes. It's really helping open NRW's eyes into different ways of doing things.
It's a project that involves a group of artists working with different communities with a remit that's very open-ended, that focuses on this very broad question of how the artists can work with the communities to together kind of explore how to make their surroundings, their communities, better places.
Os oes na rhywbeth consistent yn mynd I ddigwydd, mae rai ni weithio efo unigolion I fel empowerio nhw so bod nhw'n cymryd responsibility hefyd, bod ni just ddim yna I wneud y meddwl drostyn nhw, achos dyda ni ddim yna o ddydd I ddydd. So roed y pŵar yna iddyn nhw, dwi'n meddwl, I wneud y dewisiadau iddyn nhw hunan yn I ardaloedd hunan.
We always talk about communities owning a piece of artwork or owning their project when we have a traditionally led community artwork. But I think in this instance, that's probably the first time it's genuinely true. So that's been really good.
I think it's interesting to put stuff out there, see what people do with it, and then potentially adjust it to fit what they want to do with it.
Trusted the fact that conversations will just ripple, because they do in normal life. You have a conversation, it travels, and there's no need to measure that. It's immeasurable. You just know, because we have people who talk, it goes, and that's great to have trusted that.
We've set the foundation, the basis in terms of the way we work with each other and the way that we interact with each other. But how we get up there has been completely open, has developed as we've gone along. That's been really interesting, really different and really informative. Learned an awful lot from that and tried to apply that within other areas of NRW.
The organic process and very subtle processes of like interactions and developing relationships with people, and the importance given to that, and the trust given to the moments that are kind of can be unseen between like a person working on a project like this and the people that they're working with.
But the size of the interventions that I have been able to instigate, encourage, offer, invite, so small, but they might last forever.
They might last forever. Indeed, they might. There was just one other thing I was just going to give you a little tease about, which is another activity from our theme of small interventions, is that we have offered £200 for people to implement ideas with support if needed to make their community better. And so with research in mind, we've trialled it in 2 different ways so far, with another one planned in September. So that's it from me. Over to you, Ewan.
Thank you. As you said, it's just just a slight shot of what we've been doing. Well, you've been listening a lot now, so just to wake you up a bit, there's a Zoom poll coming up. 2 questions. If you want to answer them. Just 1 more minute then. This will really help with our research. Okay, so while you're just finishing that, I'll just summarize what we've done. So we've shared information with you about the background of the project, talked about the partnerships, principles and ways of working, and examples of some of the activities. And sorry, Katie, that we had to rush you. So now I'm going to close the poll now. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn to Claire to give her response on what she has heard today. So thank you, Claire.
Wel, diolch, Iwan, diolch to Justin, Sioned and Katie as well. I didn't quite know what I was going to come into today, and all sorts of words buzzing around in my head around inspiration, richness, freedom, possibility. And actually, you know, just this process of getting together and sharing as you go along, work in progress, taking, you know, ideas and developing them organically as we go through. Hugely interesting. Just a sort of few thoughts and comments, really. One of the things that really struck me is, I suppose, you know, I grew up on the Welsh borders and I've always been interested in, sorry, I've got a dog demanding attention, shush, go on. And I think I've always been interested in borders and sort of liminal spaces between things. And I've been very lucky in my career. I've been able to work with artists, but always in situations where artists are working with scientists or academics, or in different sort of situations. And out of those different situations, whether it was, you know, the big cultural program associated with the centenary of World War I, or the Cultural Olympiad, or around working with arts and science in sort of cancer research. There's something interesting about those liminal spaces, about where possibility, potential, things can change. And I think there's a lot in this about that sort of space of possibility and potential that we need to hold on to. We've just published our new corporate plan up to 2030. I mean, the next decade will be absolutely decisive in terms of our response to the climate and nature emergencies and to the pollution crisis we face. And we have a vision of people and nature thriving together, and three very clear objectives about, creating communities that are resilient to climate change, Wales where nature is recovering and where pollution is minimised. And partnerships are clearly absolutely key to this. But for me, it's not just the traditional partnerships. And I suppose in the Conwy Valley, we have worked over many, many years with the National Trust. And that's a very comfortable and normal and, usual partnership for us. But if you do the same thing with the same people over and over again, you might get good results and you might achieve stuff. But actually, if we're looking for the level of transformative change necessary to tackle the climate and nature emergencies, we can't just do the same thing we've always done. We need to do things differently. We need to do different things differently with different people. And that's why I've been so interested in the partnership that has evolved and grown and spread and all the rest of it in Dyffryn Dyfodol. Because finally, just that sort of, those big system change things, communities more resilient to climate change, nature recovering, they're huge. They can feel really daunting. What can we do to contribute to them? And it's quite easy to just feel, well, nothing really. But actually, what you see in a project like this are those small actions growing, doing those small things that grow and give communities and individuals real agency, real power to make a difference. And I think that's hugely important. But I think all the way through this, you've heard the impact that being part of a different sort of partnership is having on NRW. We're a big all Wales state-funded body full of lots of passionate environmentalists, but we're quite pointy-headed and data-focused and all the rest of it. And what we're doing is we're learning not to be a state body, but to be part of a community, to collaborate, to work with communities in a completely different way, to let go of some of those. I liked the chat thing about organisations letting go of stuff, letting go of some of the things that, ways of working that we have had for years and years and years, doing things differently and tapping into that wisdom of communities and the power of artists and makers to interpret what we're going through and to help all of us to make sense of it. So hugely powerful, hugely interesting. I loved my day out in Penmachno recently and visiting Oriel at Machno and meeting the team. It was great. And I sort of be really interested to hear as we go into a sort of Q&A session, how people see this moving forward and what people's sort of aspirations and hopes are for the project.
Diolch, Claire, for sharing. That's really lovely to hear that from you. Diolch for sharing. And your question's a good one, because this, dwi'n mynd i droi nôl i Gymraeg. So this is kind of a set amount of time project where we've explored what we've shared with you today. So it has a shelf life in its current form with the current funding. Absolutely. So be da ni'n mynd i wneud nesa, da ni'n gobeithio.
So what are we going to do next then? We hope to be able to carry on in some way, maybe not with the activity, but with the ways of working. And when I started the project, I thought maybe, oh, we'll find a new way of doing something like an event, but it's not that that's come out of it for me. It's the way we've gone about doing things and methods of working. That's what I've learned mostly. So what I'd like to see is that we can share what we've done, not telling people what to do, but just sharing what we've done and our experiences with the rest of the world, really. And if there's nothing else that comes out of it more than that, well, that's been valuable in itself. But I do hope that we'll be able to continue to work together in this alternative way with communities in this area and in other areas. As Justin said, replicability. How do we repeat the same type of thing in different places? We don't know yet, but that would be really something to find out. So thank you for your question, Claire. I know we're supposed to finish in about 8 minutes, and I've got 2 minutes at the end to do another poll. So I'm just going to open the floor to any questions now then. You've been very patient. We've shared a lot of stuff with you. So if you've got questions following from anything or anything you want clarity on. Melody. You're on mute.
Melody. Sorry, so can't hear you. No. Do you want to put it in the chat and I'll read it out for you? Wedyn I droi at Liz. Mae gen Liz question.
Liz, you've got a question. I was just thinking now. Simple question. How do you identify the people to work with in your area? In the communities? Anybody? Justin, Sioned, Katie? Or do you want me to answer? Well, from our point of view, there weren't any right people and people who weren't right in this project. Just people who wanted to engage with us. We were open to all. And really, it was up to them how far they wanted to go. If they just want to stop and have a chat, that's fine. If they volunteer to do something with us, that's great as well. There were no objectives to reach, or no numbers, or any streets, or any. And from me, from a background where we have to have a lot of outcomes and things, it took time for me to get my mind around this. But as somebody put in the chat before, that's been really valuable. So that made a big difference.
Well, Johan, what I say to that is, for one example, in terms of the cycle cinemas, was that although we identified maybe a Cartrefi Cymru housing estate, it was very open as to who turned up, because a table was put up in the estate, made to look inviting. Come and do this activity, make a Welsh cake or whatever, and tell us what you think. While we're doing this, let's talk about the future, but also tell us what film you want to watch. Next week when we come here with the cycle cinema. And some of the learning from that was also really interesting. And I won't name the communities involved, but one of the communities, when asked the question, so who should we invite, would say invite everybody, more the better. Everybody that comes, fantastic. The more people that come, the better. One of the other communities said, don't tell anybody else. We just want it to be us. There's so much that happens for other people down that end of the village. We just want it for us. And just immediately, a difference in communities that you have to respect and you have to think about and you have to plan around what you do.
Follow-on question, Liz.
What's really inspirational about this is that you really have engaged with the right people. It's so easy for us to engage with people we always engage with. But the only way you get to know people is to knock on doors, really. So very good. It's a great project.
Couple of cwestiynau yn y chat un i ateb yn gyflym a wedyn dod i enw. So what was the budget for the part of the project working with creatives? Oedden nhw'n cael £3,000 yr un plus
£3,000 each and £2,000 to come and visit and costs. And that didn't include our time as well.
Ond just un elfen ydy'r creative
But
call-out na, dim
that's just one element, the creative call-out. Einar? I just want to reiterate what's said already in the chat and from people here, how important and valuable this project is to show the way that you need to work in a different way with communities, and you've managed to do so. We tend to create things, market it, sell tickets, and that's it. That's the way we've usually worked. So we need to change that. And changing that way of working will have a positive impact on several things with the environment and the Welsh language and a number of things to work with people rather than on their behalf and just present them with something and leave. So thank you very much for leading the way with this scheme and feeding into the schemes as well. Okay, we are running out of time now. You're welcome to email us with questions. We really want to keep in touch with you. This is the last poll now then. And it's up to you. So I put the poll up and there's an email contact in the chat. So you've got somewhere to send in your questions. So my email is in the chat now. We're willing to share lots of details. We could speak for days on this project. So, you know, just warning you. No, if you want to chat, we're happy to have a chat with you. Melody, we'll try and ask you a question again. Try again. No, still not working.
In the chat.
In the chat.
Okay. Email me, Melody, if you've got a question anyway. My email's there. So, brilliant. Red, diolch chi am gwblhau polls. Dwi'n meddwl bod wedi gweithio eisiau polls, na do?
Right, I think the polls worked, didn't it?
Cool, really defnyddiol i ni cael gwybodaeth yna, so diolch chi am wneud hynna. So, I'm going to funud ar ôl.
So we've got a minute left. I'm going to bring things to a close now. Thank you to everyone who has come here today. Really appreciate it. Didn't know what to expect, really. So we've learnt a lot and we'll be looking at the polls to see what the feedback is. If you've got anything else to add, by all means, email. And thank you to the partners who ACW for funding the project, Cartrefi Conwy, NRW, and Claire, who's joined us today. And it is now 12:15. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Keep in touch. Thank you.